There it is. Well, hello. Welcome to our Wednesday at the Well. I am your co-host, Kavalyn Day, and I have with me the fabulous Brittany Baker. We are very excited to have all of you participating today. And would love to have you say hello in the comments, hello in the chat box, wherever you are, just to let us know where you are today. As we have done before, we are getting ready to dive into a topic that people have reached out to us about. We were going to talk about a topic that people are interested in. And today we're talking about workplace stress. So this was one of those opportunities where people were in the room that were already coming in the room before we got started today. So very excited to make sure that we are talking about this topic. Now, we are the Well Counseling and Consulting Group, which we are a premier provider of mental health treatment, personal and professional development, and we do specialize in minority mental health. We are in the Indianapolis, Indiana area. We serve all of the state of Indiana, so we are very excited to help you on your mental health journey. If you're having a mental health crisis, we absolutely encourage you to use your resources, so call 911 or 988. We are here, however, to provide some information for you today. So we are not your coaches or your clinicians of record, but we do have some who are accepting new clients. So if that is something that you need, you are welcome to call our office, which is 317-471-8996, or you can email us at intake@the Counseling Group. So Brittany, I'm gonna let you introduce yourself a little bit today and tell us a little bit about who you are and why this is a topic of interest to you.
All right. So my name is Brittany Baker. Hello, everyone. I'm a licensed mental health counseling associate and a certified compassion fatigue professional. I specialize in working with adults with ADHD, but I also see people with anxiety, depression, just work issues, you name it. This is really important to me because I'm a PhD student also, and I'm studying IO psychology. So basically how to make the workplace better for employees, how to better their well-being. So I'm very excited to be a part of this conversation.
Awesome. So the title of our topic today, we called it I Quit. How can you handle workplace stress? And the reason I kind of put that in there is because a lot of times people think the only way to handle workplace stress is to get out of the workplace. But spoiler alert, we're going to give you some strategies today that don't necessarily include having to quit the job. But let's start with kind of just framing this topic and why it's so important. So according to the U.S. Department of Labor, mental health is one of those topics that comes up because workplace stress really impacts productivity, the ability for people to function. For every dollar that's spent on mental health concerns in the workplace, employers are actually seeing a $4 return. 52% of employees say they feel burnt out right now. About 80% of people are saying that they feel workplace stress right now. There's lots of feelings of depletion, exhaustion, that mental distress. And so this is one of those things that impacts not just your work life, but also your home life. And so for a lot of corporations, workplace stress is one of those reasons that people will reach out to our office, right? So whether they want to partner with us to kind of be a part of their EAP program or to take over that for them, this is one of those topics that is a financial issue. It is a physical health issue. It is a relational health issue. It just kind of impacts every area of your life. So we're going to go through some of the questions that we tend to be asked But what I'd love for you to do, if you have specific questions about your specific work life, your specific work situation, please feel free. I am checking the comments and I am checking the chat, so we will be happy to answer those. If you want to ask anything anonymously, please know that you can send a message directly to me, like you can change that from the everyone to just me. And I'm happy to ask your question of the group and our other panelists in a very anonymous way. So the first question that we're going to talk about is, what are some of the signs of workplace stress? So Brittany, what are some of the things that if a person were to come to you and you realize like, there's some workplace issues going on, what are some of those things that you would see and say, I think this is an issue?
So first off, I would like to say that when we think about stress, we tend to think of it in a negative way, but it exists on the spectrum. So there's positive stress, which is what we need, like the short term to achieve our goals. And then there's just bad stress where it's just, you feel it in your body, it's more chronic, it's like you're carrying a weight. And so when I'm talking to clients, I'm listening for physical symptoms like that nausea that they feel at work, or sometimes even headaches. I'm listening for like work relations, like how are you interacting with the boss? Is it toxic environment? So I'm really listening for multiple things here.
Awesome, awesome. And I think sometimes we know it when we feel it, but we don't necessarily know how to verbalize it, or we know that like that sense of impending doom as you know that you're getting ready to go back to work. Some people call it the Sunday night scaries, right? Or the Monday blues, you know, where you know you're having to go back to work on the weekend. If you're starting to feel that type of emotional discomfort when you think about work, or when you like dreading opening an email, those are some of the things that kind of we start to say like, is this a workplace issue? Now, you talked about a little bit about this, but is all stress something that we need to address, or like is some stress kind of good for us? Is all stress bad? What are your thoughts on that?
So there is good stress. Like, for example, if you are preparing for a job interview and you're like, oh my gosh, I want this job, that's short term. So you go in the interview and you just rock it, you get the job, and you know you're good. But then the long-term stress is like the boss just keeps giving you unrealistic expectations. So you're skipping out on meals, you're just feeling it in your stomach. You, like you said, the Monday, what did you say? The
Monday blues.
Yeah, the Monday blues. I've heard of people having panic attacks before the night before getting, going to work. So those are the very, very chronic signs that I'm looking for too.
Yeah. And I think the thing that we want to think about is, I think it's important to look at the big picture. So not just like one little piece of it, but the big picture, because some stress is helpful to you, but also sometimes there's like two sides to that coin. So a lot of times people are like, oh, I need to quit my job. But the truth is, when you quit your job, there's a downside to that too, right? So maybe you're not going to increase your financial pressure, or you're going to lose that community that you built because you hate your supervisor, or you really value your identity as this particular type of employee, and now you've lost out on that. So it's really clear, you have to be really clear about what it is you want to eliminate, what you want to give. My mama would say, like, don't jump out of the frying pan and into the fire. So you want to make sure that you're clear about that. And that's one of those reasons why this is an appropriate topic to bring to a coaching or counseling session, because sometimes you just need to hear yourself speak it and kind of get it out there to get some clarity, as opposed to just having everything inside your head swirling around. So, yeah, go ahead.
I also like to talk to I'm glad you brought that up. I like to talk to my clients about values and job in alignment with your values. And sometimes we can't have a job that aligns with all of our values. So we have to think about what accommodations do I need to make in my outside life to align with the values, or do I need to leave this job? So it's a lot of factors that go into, do you need to quit, that you need to consider.
That is such a good point. Such a good point. And sometimes, like we work with a lot of educators, and if you've ever been on TikTok and people are on Teacher Quick Talk, that's kind of a running joke. But I think it's really important to figure out Is it something missing from your life or too much of something from for your life? Because sometimes it's a combination of, hey, I have a lot of stress over here at this job, but I don't have anything good to counterbalance it. I'm not doing any of those things that I really enjoy. Oh, I've stopped working out. I've stopped eating the way I used to eat. I haven't made time to see friends. So it's not necessarily that the stress is too much. It's that you don't have any counterbalance to bring back that flow and that continuity of quality of life that what you're looking for. So again, that's one of those places where having a conversation can be really, really helpful, or a series of conversations, because sometimes it really does take some untangling, right? Because you're kind of all mixed up in the idea that, oh, I can't quit my job, or there's no jobs available, or we're heading into a recession, and you feel helpless and hopeless in that situation. Having a place where you can come and safely have that conversation about, okay, so right now is not the right time to quit, or the job market is really, really hairy. What can I do to counterbalance the stress that I'm feeling? Sometimes that's relaxation stuff, but sometimes that's just infusing a little bit more joy in your life, or some positive coping skills too. So another question that we had is workplace stress like a medical condition? Is that a mental health condition? What are your thoughts on that, Brittany?
No, I think it can lead that way, like why I was talking about that spectrum. So when we get into the panic attacks and it's more frequent, and we get into the health conditions like hypertension, yes, that can definitely lead to medical conditions, psychiatric conditions.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think it doesn't, sometimes we're looking for a specific diagnosis. A diagnosis is not essential to get the help that you need, right? So sometimes there is a medical diagnosis or a mental health diagnosis, and sometimes there's not. But either way, whether there's a specific diagnosis present or not, there is a benefit to you having these conversations about the workplace stress. Let's talk a little bit about the conflicts that can come up, because I think sometimes workplace conflicts cause a lot of that stress. I've definitely heard from clients where it's like personality wise, people just aren't connecting personality wise. Other times it's conflicts because you have that difference in values, right? So if you are a person who very much values, let's say integrity, and you have a supervisor who's like, we'll just kind of stretch the truth a little bit. It's a different type of discomfort when you have that type of a disconnect. What would you give? What are some suggestions you might give to a client who's saying like, I'm having a lot of conflicts at work?
Sometimes it's really important to understand that, and I tell some of my clients this, we can change how we react to that person and how we show up for that person, but we can't change that other person who doesn't realize there's a problem. So you can change how you communicate. Do you need to be more assertive? And that really takes like hashing it out with your therapist, like what are the issues that are impacting the communication. Sometimes you're not the problem. The other people are the problem. So then that comes back to how do I show up differently in this workspace or with this person, or do I need to be here? So does that make sense?
Yeah, and you brought up a really good point though, because I think communication is key, right? So we always say we didn't all grow up in the same house, right? I always say like my daddy's name was Sonny Mans. We wasn't all raised by Sonny Mans, right? So the way that some people communicate is different. I don't have any problem being very direct and saying this is what I'm expecting, or this is what I need, or this is what I can or cannot. Other people feel really uncomfortable with that. So if you have a conflict in communication styles, that may increase that workplace stress. I think one of the things that's really challenging, and some of our corporate partners that we work with, people in middle management have a really tough job because it's their job to take information from upper management or ownership or leadership and translate that. And everybody's not a great communicator. So asking for clarity at work is one of those strategies that I would really encourage people to do. Being clear and concrete. Communicating over email is so challenging for some people. They really cannot be succinct, or it is received differently. So I'm a person that I love to communicate through the written word, but I understand that some people really prefer a face-to-face conversation. So if you're having a conflict, consider that it might be some of the factors around the conflict that's making it feel worse, and not necessarily that you just cannot work with that person.
Because sometimes it's really hard to even tell someone's tone in the email.
Yes. Yeah.
And that can set
Absolutely.
people off. So you really need to understand, is this a conversation that I need to have over email or like in person? Because some, wires get crossed, and just texting or emailing it can make it way worse.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now you talked about your background with compassion fatigue. When that is what's kind of showing up, because we definitely have people that we work with and that I know that are on the call today that are in helping professions. So they are either social workers or teachers or nurses. So when you're in a helping profession and that is contributing to the stress that you feel, do you have any specific strategies that you would encourage them to try?
Mhm. So definitely maybe relaxation techniques. I mean, that was one of in my training for compassion fatigue. And also like how you're eating, what you're putting in your body, that can affect how you feel at work. Like if you're starting your day off with sugars, then that can really lead to crashes. Are you feeling horrible? So it's little factors that you can look at to, adjust your day and then feel a little bit better during the day.
Yeah, I was I call that like back to basics, right? Those basics things that
Me too.
when you're in a heightened period of stress, I think some of those basics are the first things that fall off, right? So when you feel stressed, you reach for the coffee and not the water. I'm trying to drink my water, guys, but you reach for the coffee and not the water. Then by the end of the day, you feel dehydrated and you got a headache and you don't understand why. Or you're saying I'm going to work through lunch to try and get a little bit more done, but then your blood sugar crashes and you're not feeling your best. And so it's harder for you to get the work done because you don't have the energy. So I think it's really important, particularly when you're in a helping profession, to make sure that you have established some boundaries about this is my non-negotiable. So for me, one of the things that I have to have is a little bit of white space, right? I call it white space and light space. So I've got to have some white space on my calendar where nothing is there. I haven't scheduled anything. Sometimes that space ends up with something overflowing into it, or it's just an opportunity for me to read a magazine or watch a fun video or what have you. But then light space is those things that light me up. So making sure that I'm making time for the thing that I really enjoy. A couple weeks ago, I went to the New Edition concert, and I was out to about 1:30 in the morning. And anybody who knows me knows that if you text me after 9:30, you're gonna get an answer in the morning. But I enjoyed it, and it lit me up really for like I'm probably still riding high, to be honest. But you've got to find some things in your life that you enjoy, especially if you're in a helping profession. Yes, Brittany.
I'm here. Are you there, Cowboy? I think I lost you.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so I don't see any questions in the comments. So here's an opportunity if anybody has any specific questions. Otherwise, if you have any last thoughts for us, Brittany, we'll kind of wrap it up on this topic of workplace stress.
Mhm. Are there any comments?
Yeah, I don't see any specific questions. And do you have any kind of final thoughts? If somebody's going back to work and they had a bad morning this morning, what little nugget would you send them back to work with today?
Well, another thing that I wanted to mention was you need to realize like what are your responsibilities, are your actual responsibilities for this job versus what you're placing on yourself. And so, and also like are you in a position to delegate tasks? So sometimes we want that control, like I don't want to give this to somebody else because they're not going to do it the way I do it. But you got to realize if you're so stressed out and you're feeling these physical symptoms and it's really hindering your life, sometimes we have to take a step back from that control and then delegate that task. If it's going to get done, if it's done, then that's the most important part. It doesn't really matter if it's not done exactly the way you want it. So just understand, like, what are your responsibilities versus what expectations you're putting on yourself, and that can help too.
Oh, that's such a good point, because I that's something you probably was talking to me, Brittany, because I'm a person that doesn't like to give up. I want things the way that I want them, but that does I really call it unrealistic expectations, right? So there's only so many hours in the day. There's only so much that you absolutely can do. And a lot of times the stress that we're feeling from our job is from unrealistic expectations that we've placed on ourselves. So that's a really good point. So we do have a question here. So I'm a school social worker. How could I help support my teachers from burnout? That's a really great question. So if your workplace stress is feeling worse because part of your job is helping others not feel stressed, do you have any good suggestions for that?
I liked what you said about trying to implement your hobbies in there and what you care about. And it also goes into the values things that I was discussing. You definitely have to have your own. I don't know if this person has their own friend group or other social workers, just a safe place to vent. I think that's definitely needed for people in this profession, like other
Absolutely.
professionals, to talk and hash it out with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing that I really encourage people to do is lead by example, number one. So as you see people practicing habits that are leading to burnout, make sure that you're doing the opposite. But the other thing is ask really good questions of the people that you're trying to encourage, right? So what would it look like if you weren't stressed right now? Well, I wouldn't have this on my plate, or I wouldn't be doing that, or I would be here instead, or I would be eating this instead. Encourage their mind to go to a place where there's slightly less stress than what they're feeling right now. And that can open them up to the potential practices that they should be exhibiting, right? So a lot of times if you say, when was the last time you didn't feel this stressed? Sometimes you want to go all the way to like, oh, summer break. Okay, well, what were you doing during summer break that you're not doing right now? Well, obviously you weren't working, but I was going to bed a little bit early, or I was spending a lot of time outside on my deck, right? Or I was hanging out with my kids more. Well, are you getting time with your kids? I'm going to not go to that game this afternoon, and I'm going to spend time with my kids. So there oftentimes are ways that you can put some of those things back into your life. A lot of times we want it to be perfect, right? We want to have the magic wand and make the perfect day or the perfect week, but maybe we can pull a piece of perfect into today. So those are the kind of things that I would generally encourage, specifically like teachers and social workers now. When we're in the spring, we're post spring break, so nobody's getting any more breaks until the summer, and that stress gets to be really high. I would encourage you to find little pockets of peace and inject those into your day, and that will kind of help them to not feel quite so much burnout. All right, well, we are so happy that you guys have spent a little time with us today. Hopefully you got at least one little nugget that you can take back to your day to help you not be overwhelmed by workplace stress. As always, The Well is happy to partner with you in your individual well-being quest. We are more than happy to provide you with those individual counseling sessions or coaching sessions. We're also very happy to partner with organizations. So if you recognize that, hey, my employees might be feeling some stress right now and we want to give them a resource, please feel free to reach out to us as well. We will be back next week. And next week, what is our topic? Let me see here. We have 2 more topics left for April. We're going to be covering co-parenting at the end of the month, and next week we're going to be talking about loving someone with anxiety or depression. So if you have someone in your life who you love who is dealing with their own mental health challenges, Dr. Danita Hudson is going to be with us talking about how we can support people who are on their own healing journey. So make sure that you come back next Wednesday, and we will be talking about how to help someone who you love who is struggling with anxiety or depression. So we have had a great time with you guys. Thank you for spending a little time with us this Wednesday at the Well, and we will see you soon.